There's a guy who is our leader, and I'm saying this because he earned it. Didn't want it, still doesn't want it. We don't care if he wants it or not. We didn't pick him. I believe God did.
There you go.
Mark Baird. Give me a hand. I have something very special to give to Mark. He'll hold it up and show you. But this is an amazing thing which he will explain only in the way he can explain it. And I believe this is a gift, isn't it, my friend? Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Baird.
This is a picture from the Stony Ford Rodeo a couple of years ago. And the first event is the flag event, where young people ride around the arena full tilt carrying a flag, and they're judged on their appearance and how they look and how their horse behaves and so on. This flag is right in front of Governor Brown. Now, he pretends not to know what we're doing here, but I think he might. Amen, brother. You know, thanks for that. I'll tell you what, I'd be happy to trade with one of you guys, because I really am not the guy to be up here, but here we are now. You know, Thomas Gordon said in 1721, and this was 300 years ago, where there's liberty, there's usually a plot against it. And I've been all over the world. Most of you know I'm a retired pilot, and I still do a little bit of flying, but I spent 44 or 45 years flying all over the world. I've landed an airplane on every continent except Antarctica. They tried to get a job down there, but they didn't get it. So I've seen a lot of different cultures, and I have to tell you that in most of the world, there is neither light nor liberty. And usually, where there is liberty, there's a plot against it. And California is no different. And you know, Thomas went on to say 300 years ago that every plowman knows the difference between good government and bad. He knows by what effect it has on him, and by whether his produce is his to keep or whether it's taxed into insignificance. And I'm trying to use my notes here, so I apologize for looking down, but it's really important for me to say these things, and so forgive me, I don't usually use the notes. But government is nothing more than a contract. It's a contract between the many and the few. And the reason we place our trust in the few is so that most of us can conduct our lives and take care of our families and our businesses and our friends and our homes and families. And then we give a few people the job of doing one thing and one thing only, and that's to protect the liberty that we hold most dear. Government is not an open mandate. Hey kiddo. Government is not an open mandate for people in this building to do whatever they want and either pretend ignorance of what you want them to do or to totally ignore you to begin with. And that's... Now, the founders of this state, the founders of the state of California, wrote the contract that is the Constitution of the state of California. And they did so with a very narrow purpose in mind. And by the way, we can prove all of these things to ourselves. All of this stuff is available in documents on justia.law or history.org. You can find every one of these documents if you want to. But the founders of this state had a narrow purpose in mind. And here's how we know what it was. It's the preamble to the California Constitution. We, the people of the state of California, grateful to Almighty God for our freedom, that to secure and perpetuate its blessings, we do establish this Constitution. Why do we have a Constitution in California? Is it to define busing or victims' rights or what sources a newspaper man can reveal? The California Constitution is a joke now, folks. It's been amended 525 plus times since its inception, when the federal Constitution has been amended, and if you ignore the Bill of Rights, 17 times in 238 years. 27 times if you count the first 10, and even a couple of those people thought better of and rescinded them later. The California Constitution has been amended over 500 times. And let me tell you what happens every time that Constitution is amended. Your life gets more difficult and more expensive. That's the result of that. And quite frankly, the Constitution of this state is the joke of the legal world. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of California. I've taken the oath for the United States Constitution twice or 3 times, and the oath to support the California Constitution once. And I realized when I left the building after I took that oath to support the California Constitution that I'd never read it. And I thought, boy, that's wrong. I just pledged my life to support a document I'd never even read. And so I sat down and I read it. It's over 110,000 words. The federal Constitution is only 6,000 words. This thing has things in it that don't belong in the outhouse, much less the Constitution. But that document is designed to deprive you of your liberty and deprive you of your property. But we have to remember, the state of California would like to construct a nanny state where everybody gets everything they think they want. But remember this, a government big enough to give you everything you want is also big enough to take it away. And how many of you out here trust a government that doesn't trust you? I mean, you are the people. You formed government. Government is formed for your good and your benefit. And Article 2, Section 1 of the California Constitution tells us that all just political power derives from the people. The people. Government is instituted for their good, not its own good, not to benefit itself. So how can we ask ourselves then, how is it possible that the government inside this building creates laws that you are subject to, but they are not? Is that rule by law or is that rule of law? That's rule by law. Aristotle created the principle of rule by law. That's where the word aristocracy comes from. He thought that there should be a ruling elite and they should create a set of laws which they are not subject to in order to govern you. Plato, on the other hand, said that we needed rule of law. That's where law is the great equalizer. It applies equally to everything, everyone. Rich man and poor man will suffer the same fate for breaking the same law. Well, why is it in 2011 that the small amount of people in this building, the small minority of the people of our state, created a law where they don't have to comply with the same concealed carry laws that you do? In fact, they exempted themselves. They don't have to show good cause. If they want to protect themselves or their family, they just have to go say so and they get a concealed carry permit. You, however, in most of the counties of California, have to be able to prove that your life is in imminent danger and ongoing threats are mounted against you before you can get the same carry permit that they get just for asking for it. You know, the liar in chief, I'm sorry, the governor, no, I was right the first time.
Don't be sorry.
The liar in chief used state employees to prospect for oil on his family ranch. And he turns around and tells you, well, that's okay. Well, I don't know, I think it came out of your pocket. You know, part of it probably came out of mine. But so we're here today to ask government a question. You know, I laugh, I have a joke every time I get up in front of a crowd, I pick up the mic and I go, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'd like to ask the people in this building, can you hear us now?
Yeah!
They do?
You know, every time I talk to one of these fellows or try to talk to them, I actually don't talk to them very often. I talk to their staff members and they say, well, you know, we don't really know anything about Jefferson. Can you hear us now? You know, I don't think the governor of this state, who calls the taxpayers of California freeloaders, can hear us. Amen, brother. I don't think a legislature that causes hardworking, tax-paying citizens of the state of California to pay in excess of $1 a gallon more than anyone else in the nation pays for gasoline can hear us now. I don't think they can. But do you know why they want us to do that? Because you, whether you like it or not, are going to pay to save the world. You know, in fact, the way I remember this going, we've been paying for that for year after year after year after year. And to hear them tell it, we haven't saved a darn thing yet.
No.
You know, if I owned a business and I told my manager and I gave him a couple of $1 billion and said, go fix this problem, and he came back to me 25 years later and said, oh, the money's gone and I need 50 billion next time, and by the way, I haven't fixed a damn thing yet. Well, what would you do? Would you keep handing him the money? You know, Boone Pickens, a very famous stock trader, he said one time that if you have a mansion, and it's the most beautiful mansion on the block, there's just nothing wrong with that house. You love it. Every time you walk by it, people admire it. People really enjoy seeing it. And you have a gardener that's doing a lousy job. What should you do? Should you burn the house down or fire the gardener?
Fire the gardener.
I don't think that a Los Angeles state senator who imposes a tax on the North State, which his people do not have to pay the SRA fire fee, I don't think he can hear you. Can you hear us now? I think that Kevin De Leon, the Senate pro tem, the liar-in-chief of the Senate,
There's a kiss
I
for you.
don't think that he can hear us when he says it's okay to steal someone's identity so that you can sneak into this country or into this state because, hey, that's what it takes to get by. I wonder, would I do as well in court if I was driving the getaway car at a bank robbery? I didn't really rob the bank. The getaway car was what I had to do to get by. I don't think Kevin can hear you. Kevin, can you hear us now? I don't think a California state senator who was a gun runner, a liar, and a criminal, who deprived you of your Second Amendment rights to own a semi-automatic weapon that you could actually take the feeding device out, I don't think he was listening to us. Even though that guy's in jail, the liars and thieves in this building still subject you to the law that he crafted. I don't think the liar-in-chief can hear you when he hires people like Mary Nichols, who used a fraud, Dr. Hiram Tran, to create data for CARB and decimate the trucking industry of the North State and the rest of California, even though the head of California's CARB knew those figures were a lie and a fabrication. Those regulations still stand. Governor, can you hear us now? I don't think a Los Angeles state senator who says he thinks that you should only be able to purchase one firearm per month, even though you may already own 15 of them, is listening to us. I think he's crafting regulations for 1 million people in Los Angeles that don't think their vote counts and don't pay any attention to what the guy says. I mean, but his claim to fame is he was the art director for the Grizzly Adams TV show.
Yahoo!
Senator Portantino, can you hear us now? You know, I don't think the unions that own this state can hear you when you talk. I think that their interest is self-interest. I don't think it's public interest. I don't think their interest is that you and your children have a decent way of life with the effort that you provide and the money that you make for yourselves and your families. I don't think those unions care. I think they care more about the $2 trillion they're in debt and how to get it out of your pocket. And let me tell you, service taxes are coming next. That's the next big one. When you go get a haircut, you're going to pay a tax. When you call a plumber, you're going to pay a tax. Probably when you go to the gas station, you'll pay a tax for a guy that wipes down your window. And that's what the people in the building behind us, because I'm not going to call them my representatives because they only represent themselves. That's where they say the real money's going to come from, because you know what? They know you have a nickel buried in the backyard somewhere and they got the big metal detector and they're going to find it. And you think I'm kidding. At what point do we stop being a constitutional republic and start being a socialist or a communist society? Is that point when you give 58% of your income, 59%? What is the tipping point for you personally when we leave a republic, a constitutional republic that we created in order to serve the needs of the public? When do we make the transition to a government that only serves itself and uses you for the big piggy bank and tyrannizes you and your family and takes away your property and your liberty? At what point? What is your line in the sand? Can you hear us now in there? Do you have an answer for that? You know, these people have a price, though. Jerry Brown, the liar-in-chief, he did an interview with Gore Vidal one time, and it was after he was finished being governor and he was running for president. You know what he told Gore Vidal on the radio? And you can look this up on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and look up Jerry Brown crook, and you'll find this audio. He told Gore Vidal, he says, Gore Vidal said, hey, Jerry, you started out opposing the B-1 bomber, and now you're running for president, and all of a sudden you're in favor of the B-1 bomber. And Jerry said, I was really surprised how cheaply I could be bought. Well, you know what? The people in this building, they're bought too. They're bought and paid for. But you know what their price is? It's your liberty. And you pay it every day we don't resist, and every day we don't fight them, and every day we don't change this. So we have the worst representative ratio in the United States. It's something north of 300% worse than state number 49. And after tens of thousands of phone calls and tens of thousands of emails and thousands upon thousands of visits and 21 county petition, do you know the answer we got from them? The silence was deafening. And most of them, when you talk to them, our own representatives included, they say, well, I don't really know very much about that. Can you hear us now? One state senator for 1 million people is not democracy, it is tyranny. If that guy did nothing but answer one call a day per constituent, he'd have to answer the phone 4,000 times a day. One assemblyman for 500,000 people is tyranny. And since we got no response, since we did not even get a fair hearing of our grievances through the petition, phone call, email, declaration process, we sued him. We sued him in federal court. Now, I want to be honest with you, and most of you have heard me yap before, so you probably know what I'm going to say next. The only way to separate from the state of California constitutionally, and here's the deal, folks, we must be better than them. Now, that's not very hard, I admit it, but here's the point. We've got to be better than they are. If it's not legal, ethical, and moral with precedent, we can't do it because we would betray our God and betray ourselves, and I won't have any part in that. So what we've done is we realized that the Article 4, Section 3 process will not serve us because we don't have representation here. We have dictatorship and tyranny. So what we did was sue them. Now I want to tell you, when we sued them in federal court, there is no way constitutionally to separate from a state with a judicial process. We all know that, right? Okay, so here's what we have to do, and the liars and cheats in the building are causing this problem, but here we are now, and we'll fight our way through it. We have to dramatically expand the representation within the state of California for all Californians in order to hopefully achieve a path to statehood. And that's what this suit is going to do. There's plenty of case law, there's plenty of precedent. In fact, if you read Thomas Paine's book, Common Sense, that's the earliest pamphlet about representation in America that I could really find. And you know what Thomas said? He said, the first legislature you can have under the oak tree because everyone will just show up. But then as people join your colony, as people join your community, representation must increase so that all people have some. God, what a concept. And in 1850, the founders of this state created a state and laid out a foundation and a framework which they instituted, and it gave us one state senator for every 6,000 people and one assemblyman for every 2,500. That is representation. Do you know why? Because it takes the money out of the politics. If you're a state senator and you represent 6,000 or 10,000 or whatever it ends up being, if you do a lousy job or you're corrupt, you basically represent your neighborhood and your community. It will be easy for your neighborhood to see that you're a crook and a thief, and it will be cheap for them to get rid of you and put someone in your chair that isn't a crook and a thief. We don't have that now. We almost never get rid of an incumbent in California because it's too expensive a process and it's too hard to accomplish. That's what our suit hopes to achieve. We have a lot of plaintiffs. We have some who are elected officials. We have some who are governmental entities. We have some who are private individuals. We even have a couple of Indian tribes that are represented. We have 2 political parties that are represented because they can't ever have a hope to win an election under the processes that the monoparty has created in California. And when I say monoparty, I mean all of them. I mean all the crooks in that building, not just half of them or the supermajority. So what we hope to create with the lawsuit is a situation like in the beginning of California where there are 3, 4, maybe 5 parties that have representative seats in government. And in that way, we have diversity of opinion, and we also have checks and balances because it is impossible for the majority to take away the inalienable rights of the minority. What is the reason for government? Secure the rights of the governed. That's why we have constitutional republic, to prevent 51% of the liars in the building from taking the inalienable rights away from the other 49%. So can you imagine where the northern third of California we have 21 counties, and we have 6 state level representatives, and some of those share other counties that are not within that 21. The other 37 counties of California have 114 representatives. State Senate District 1 shares 11 counties. Los Angeles has 15 senators. Do you know why every one of these thieving tax bills comes out of Los Angeles? Where do you think all the money goes? They have 1 million people on food stamps there, and they want your money so that they can expand that, according to the mayor of Los Angeles, another 50%. They're having little fairs and advertisements. Get signed up for food stamps. Tell your friends, free money, free food. And you know why? Because you get a group of compliant consumers who vote with their hand out. What better thing is that? Now, it's funny. My wife and I have a really old Jack Russell. He's 18 years old. He's blind and he's deaf. And basically, he's on a tether. He gets more than about 10 feet away from his bed or water bowl or food, and he gets lost. You could kind of say he's chained to his master's table. Now, he's chained with love, but this is different. You are nothing more than slaves chained to your master's table. And you can move around very freely as long as you never hit the end of the chain. But you'll find very quickly that voting the way the people of the state of California have been voting lately, you're chained to the table and you are content with the scraps that your master flicks off on the floor for you. Is that what you want? Is that... Can you hear us now? You know, a very famous guy said, and I'm going to close here because I'm getting windy. A very famous guy said that if you value your safety and your security more than your liberty, then if you value your safety and your security or your money more than your liberty, crouch down and lick the hand that feeds you. We seek neither your counsel nor your arms. Go from us in peace, and may we forget that you were ever called countrymen. You know, they say that Jefferson would be poor. I'll tell you what, I would rather be starving to death and free than chained to my master's table. So I would like to say in closing that we pledge to each other our lives, our treasure, and our sacred honor in the cause of liberty in either the state of California, and if we can possibly engineer this through a settlement that is favorable to a path to statehood through the state of Jefferson, the 51st state. And when we finish here, I would like all of you to go in with me to the building. I'm going to present Governor Brown with a gift. I'm also going to present him with a letter because he claims he doesn't know anything about what we're doing. So I have a letter explaining what we're doing, and I'm going to give him a courtesy copy of our complaint that is now in federal court awaiting for the motions, the first motions. You know, once we finish, I'd like to ask all of you, break into teams, whatever you're comfortable with, 2, 3, 4, whatever group you came with, because we need to be back out here for the buses on time. But go around and ask legislators this question: can you hear me now? And then ask them again, can you hear me now? Because we, the people of the state of Jefferson, and all of the plaintiffs in the CFR lawsuit, we know not what course others may take, but as for us, give us liberty or give us death. Thank you.